Hello.
Hi,
Hey, Lana, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And all four of us are here now, so
Great.
and ready for you.
Cool.
Okay.
This one's not done.
And
No, it's different.
that, and we are. This. Oh, okay. We see now the screen.
You see?
Yeah. Let me see what we do.
Where you sitting, Alice? Going over there? Yeah.
Okay, cool. Not quite that right. I think so manage. I'll take snapshots on my
Yeah, you can probably turn that off.
sure.
Or do you need it? Yeah, let me do.
No.
You're busy.
That's okay.
Oh,
I don't have to things.
Is my screen too small?
I think it's okay. How about you guys?
we'll be good. Good.
Okay. So you drive. I don't think we need to do anything.
Did you tell them who everybody is? Do we need to do introductions or?
I see on the when Lana signed in, you've got Tad, Albert, Tony, and Lana.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think we're good.
All right, mate.
So I'm just going to do a review, and maybe we can find some gaps. Is there any special agenda item you want to discuss?
Actually, I've emailed our wish list to you, so let me find it. But you can start if you. For example, we can start with item setup. And I remember he tried, one of our employees, Suzanne, tried to set up items, and either because you didn't import all the data or because the screens were different, she occasionally had some issues.
Okay.
And we also have questions to ask about how we would like items to be set up differently than now. I don't know.
Okay.
Right.
And really, what have we got now? Where can we go? So there's trying to understand the change that we're going to have to go through, as well as, new functionality that we may not be aware of that you've recently added. Certainly, the people here are coming at it with different levels of exposure. So we're looking to, if you've got some tools and gizmos, we're very interested in understanding what that is, because we're interested in opportunities to make things more efficient at this end.
Okay, I'll send you the message of what we actually.
I think I found it, Lana. Do you see it on the screen?
Yes. Yeah, right.
Okay. So, let me jump back to so a while ago, I forget when we imported your inventory probe for Windows parts or data, but we imported it a while ago. So we have all of your items and customers and, all of your inventory probe for Windows data, but it's old, but it should still be good for the demo. So let me start. I think I'm going to start with system users. Right now we've got a couple. We created Lana, Todd, Char, and Deb. Everybody's an admin currently. That may change. So adding a new user is relatively easy. There's just a button up here in the upper right that you can click, and you come in here, and let's create Tony since Tony's on the call. Actually, I guess the format we've been using is.
Or maybe Albert.
Okay, Albert.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Seaforth?
Yes.
Can we copy existing user?
Yeah, we could copy existing users, sure.
Okay. I mean, I'm just asking. I didn't see the button, but I'm assuming that we can, so it makes our life easier later.
Right. I mean, it's not. There's not too many steps here to creating a user. I'm gonna stick. Just for the time being, I'll put you in admins, Albert. I've already forgotten the password. I think I used 1234 ABC. So let me log out.
What do you know? That sounds familiar.
Oh, I did .com. Let me change this. I don't know if it's going to let me do that, actually.
Well, you and I can change it. Actually, he can change it because he's admin as well.
Okay. All right. So we're logged in as Albert now. But everybody so far is an admin, so it doesn't really matter. And we're just in some demo data.
Mm-hmm.
So creating a new part is just a matter of clicking on this. The other thing that I'm doing here is I'm recording the meeting. So
okay.
So I'll throw it up on YouTube when we're done, so that we can go. You can go back and look at it.
Good.
Okay. Then I don't.
Yeah, you don't need to make too many notes. You can just focus on watching. So I edited that part, which brought me into the attributes. And there's about 60 or 80 different attributes here, and they're kind of tabbed off by these labels here. So if the item is a make, you check this box off. Whether you're using serial lot numbers, you check this box off. And whether the serial number needs to be unique. And then if you want the system to auto-assign serial numbers, there's a checkbox for that too. And you can customize these screens. So let's say we're looking at the General tab, which is the screen that comes up when you go into the edit, and let's say you wanted to see the cost and the price up in this General tab instead of on this other tab, just because it's easier to see. What you can do is come in here and customize the screen. And something doesn't look right to me. So if we want to bring the cost and the price up to the top, these are currently 41 and 42. I'd make them like 17 and 18. Where'd they go? Cost. Let's make this 17. This isn't working right. I don't have a good feeling about this. This doesn't look right. Where's price? Okay. And then if we view the screen, now you can see that the cost and the price showed up at the bottom of this General tab.
So is that numbering designed to be just the number
like in order that this is
Right.
shown and as
Right. Right.
subheadings.
And that, honestly, when I edited that, that didn't really, these should have automatically renumbered. I shouldn't have two 17s here. So and I just did this for another client. I could actually show you. I think that this demo system that we're looking at is just a little bit out of date. I click customize here.
I didn't see where you went to customize.
Oh, okay. Sorry, going too fast.
Uh-huh.
Down here in the lower right, there's a button.
Lower right. Oh, I see. Okay.
See this customize button?
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Okay.
And you got to be an admin or that button doesn't show up. So you can get yourself in trouble, you know, if you get different people playing with that. So if I click on customize here, and then I move 42 up to 17 or 16. Huh. Acting funny. Not quite sure. Not quite sure. Maybe it's just me. But I don't think there should be two 16s here.
That's okay.
So, yeah, it doesn't really, it worked. What we were doing worked. So, I shouldn't complain. The only other thing I noticed here is that when we did the field type and the field label are switched, the screen layouts are just different. So something's out of sync here, but it doesn't really matter. So if you want to change where the fields are on these screens, like you were saying, just by changing the numbers, you can, we can make it so these tabs essentially go away, and everything just shows up in one long list in whatever order you want.
Change the field type in case if we decide to keep a date in a field that's text, or that is fixed.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, you can move the fields around, and some of them are disabled, like where the ones that aren't visible, like this default inbound warehouse is currently not, it's a field that's not being used. So you can move things around, but you can't really change a date field to be a text field. Or vice versa. If a field is already set up to be a date, then you're stuck with it. There are some extra fields, though.
Okay. We'll need a few extra dates, maybe. Maybe they're already in this new version. That's why I'm asking in case if we do.
Yeah, adding new fields shouldn't be a problem. You just have to tell us what tables you want the fields to be in.
Add new field.
Looking for
Change order.
And jump back over to this one. Yes, there's something goofy with that screen. This field name. See, I don't see the field name field on this screen, but on this one I get it. And this one actually shows you all the fields in the table. Okay?
Okay.
So if we scroll down through this, it shows you all of the fields. and there's a lot of them.
Mhm.
But see how you got these option one, string option one,
Yes.
string option,
Yeah,
double.
they exist in the current version as well.
Right, right. And then you got all these. I don't know what these L ones are. I guess it's level 1, level 2, level 3 for price levels. So we do 10 different price levels. But that's not to say you couldn't reuse some of these fields for other things.
Okay.
It's just you can't change the type of a field. So, if a field is a number field and you want to use it as a different, for a different reason, you can do that.
Not a problem. Okay.
Okay. So we'll have to get your dev site updated so that it's looking right. All right. So I spent way too much time on that. So if you want to add a new item, you just click Add New, and you type in your item ID. Anything that's required is checked off over here in the column. There's only one. You just have to put in the item ID. I don't know what you want to call it.
Columbia Excel, or actually this is ID, so I don't know. Well, call it 1, 2, 3 if you want, and we'll just description is Columbia Excel, so for example.
Columbia what?
Just Columbia, that's right.
Okay. And then you can pick, some of these other fields, like Columbia, center code. I don't know, maybe it's green. The default supplier. This is the default location that it's going to come into. It's all, you can change it, but that would be just the default. Any notes you wanted to make about the item? You can upload pictures. I have to save it first, and then the upload. And you can upload as many pictures as you want. Let me go to.
So I have a question for us, I suppose. That default location, do you use it for the dock or the put away storage location?
That's a process thing. You could use either.
Okay, that's good.
If you have a default location for items, you can certainly put it in there, and then as long as your warehouse guys are watching or are careful and make sure they put it in the right spot.
Yep. There's opportunity for us there. That's good.
So I'm just going to save image.
Is there a particular file type it has to be in order to go up?
JPEGs and GIFs, I think. I'm not sure PNGs work. JPEGs and GIFs for sure.
Okay.
So if I click here, and then I click upload, and I go to my downloads, and I pick this guy. Hold on. I'm going to conference Akin and see if he can update this screen. This system. Hold on just a sec.
Okay.
Where's my hold button? Tell how much I use my phones. So how do I put somebody on hold?
Where it's gone.
All right, I'm back.
Hi.
Just,
Yeah.
So Zach's going to update the system here, and hopefully.
Great. Hey, Ben, I got a quick question here.
Sure.
I know you use the mouse to go through all the different fields. Can we also press tab or just have less
Yeah, you
mouse?
can. Yeah, you can. I don't know how frustrating it is. I don't use tab very much, but yeah, you can. See, I'm pressing the tab key now.
Great.
So yeah, you can. Shift tab takes you back,
Right.
and it looks like when I hit those ellipses, forward's going okay. When I'm going back, for some reason it's getting stuck there. I'm pressing Shift Tab now, and it's stuck on that. That's an interesting. But as long as you're going forward, it looks like the tab works fine.
Yeah, good. Good.
So that was a pretty lame. Maybe I should start over again.
So, Pat, do you think we need anything special to ask about item creation?
No, we can post an email. I want to know, how things get received, how we input our coffee specific stuff in here, batch detail wise, what's the DO process look like, and how we track it.
Okay, so which one do you want first?
DO.
Okay. Ben, did you hear Pat?
No, I couldn't hear what Tad said. Can you say it again?
So right now, the way we were handling inventory, customer to another, is to ship it back out of the system and then put it back in with a letter, A, B, C, D, E. So right now, we're doing a purchase order to put it in the system because that's the only way to capture the coffee specific details that green room worked with you guys, the ways of containers and the like. And then we ship it back out on a shipping order, then receive the next one back in with the letter on a new purchase order, which is crazy time consuming. So I talked to Tom a while back about the premise of us being able to use the same item ID, but for multiple customers or vendors, I guess in this case. What would it look like to move inventory from one owner to another? That's a fundamental transaction for us. So for example, we would bring in 300 pieces from coffee company A, and they're going to go around and sell 100 of those to coffee company B. Presently, we would receive in the originals with a purchase order, we'd ship out the 100, then receive the 100 back in on another purchase order under a different vendor's name. And that way it's reflected in the system. We pull inventory reports and the like.
Yeah. I'm going to invite Zach.
Okay. Tom alluded to something like a work order process being able to be used for that, but he never really elaborated. And I'm not sure how in-depth you were with the green room when they cut over to iPoll, but anything you can kind of glean from how they do it would definitely be of assistance as well.
Hold on just a sec. I'm going to get him back in.
Sure.
All right, I joined Zach into the meeting. He's going to connect in.
Mm-hmm.
So, Zach, the question they just had was ownership, inventory ownership.
It doesn't do anything in the modern system. It's only an inventory pro for Windows option. It's a legacy option.
But they're using it. How would we simulate the ownership here? Can we use another field for it?
We have the fields in the database still. I'd have to look at how it's programmed currently and try to emulate that in the modern system.
So the question is green room still using it the same way that we do by having letters in it?
I don't remember. I don't know.
That's something we'd have to look into.
But the question becomes, we have the field, so we can turn the field on, right?
Yeah, it's still in the database.
But what if only partials, so 100 packages, 50 are going to belong to company A and 50 belong to company B?
Yeah, we would just have to enable it on the screen, and then I think we would just give you the ability to change the ownership. Rather than ship it out and re-receive it back in, we would just give you the ability on like the locate and move screen to change the ownership.
Okay, beautiful. So in that case, then we'd be able to just say, okay, rather than saying removing 50 from location A to location B, we're going to move 50 from customer A to customer B.
Right.
Or vendor A to vendor B, sorry.
Right.
Okay, so then from that, we need to be able to generate a warehouse receipt or something to that effect to say that the transaction's been executed and to give background on what the lot details all are.
So when you do a receipt,
Yep.
if I just do a receive stock, you want to see the ownership on here. Who owns it?
Yeah, so right now what ends up happening is for every different lot, even if it's the same product, we'll create a new item ID with the letter, and we'll have the vendor set up as who's going to own it. Then we receive it against the PO with that owner being the one who we've air quotes purchased the inventory from. That's how it's being managed thusly.
Okay.
That's messy. Can you repeat that process again?
Now, one of the things that Tom was talking about some time back was setting up a work order process for it to change, because that way there at least be a transaction ID associated to audit it and to be able to generate documents off of it. Is that something that you think might be workable?
So can you repeat the process as far as you create different item IDs for each different owner?
Right.
Yeah, but the only reason you're doing that is because you have to today, right?
Yes, that's right. Because the way that the tool was designed, our reporting tool came back, is that it pulls from a bunch of your guys' data tables. If we receive against the same lot twice, then it ends up breaking how it shows the pivot table data. And then second to that, that was pretty much it, because the item master can say whoever it wants. It doesn't pull anything in real time. It's only against who happens to be the vendor of record at the time when the purchase order is received.
Well, I think that would actually be covered in our system, because we have the associate field which tracks which vendor a product was bought from.
Yeah, right.
So I don't think there's a need to, at least in Inventory Pro Online, I don't think there's a need to create different item IDs for each different vendor, because it tracks which vendor, which product came from.
Right. So if we ended up, so a standard container of coffee's got 300 pieces in it. So if we ended up having 300 pieces come in from coffee company A, and they're going to sell 150 to coffee company B, the current process is for us to ship out that item ID, create a new one, copy it, put an A on it, receive it back in on a new PO with that as the vendor in the item master field, and then we've now got 150 and 150, with one of each, and transactions to say that it was removed from one guy's inventory on the S order side, and then on the purchase order side we have a transaction that says, cool, we've now received 150 pieces into the other vendor, and we can change the vendor in the item master, and that just can move in real time.
So when you have
this, we wouldn't have to do a letter this time. We could use the same item ID, but we still would have to remove the inventory from the system, from the original vendor customer, and then have to bring it back in somehow. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that could be done. So, Ben, can you give me mouse control?
Yeah, I knew we were going to. Hold on.
Yeah, can you show us how we can change the ownership of a portion of a quantity?
Yeah, so instead of that process, we do have a capability in the, hang on, let me just log out of this account, switch to the administrator.
We were logged in as an admin.
No, you were logged in as Albert at Seaforth. Huh.
not having much luck with
Yeah, this site hasn't been kept up to date recently. Let me just switch to one that I know is going to work. We'll have to go through and check the database out, make sure all the values are up to date and everything. So if we go over to the locate move area, my thought for this process would be instead, you know, you would look in the system to see, okay, which lot number do I need to find and split, and then from here, let's say I need to send, you know, 50 units of this, you know, to another company. Okay, we'll just split that lot into 2 lots of 50. Okay, and then we would click on the record to the left here. And from here, this is the actual item stock record in the warehouse.
Right.
We actually have in the newer version of the system logging. So any changes made directly to the stock record are logged into, you know, into our transaction log. So, for example, here, I know we have the owner ID field, which is what you're using currently, but we also have an associate field which tracks the vendor. Essentially, what we would do here is change the associate field, so the supplied by field. We would change this to whatever the new, you know, vendor is, and if we enable logging, this will get logged to the server as a transaction, you know, changing the ownership of that particular record. So
in that instance, then I need to be able to generate a certificate off of that transaction. Is that something that can be done from this set of screens?
We can generate some sort of certificate. I don't know, you know, what you're using currently. I would assume you're using like the purchase order module and a, you know,
That's
purchase
right.
order invoice or something.
Yeah.
But we could generate a document based on this, an ownership, you know, transfer document. That's not a problem.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's,
but that would be a much more straightforward process than having to generate different item numbers and
oh, absolutely. It's a nightmare.
everything like that.
Now, would that transaction, as it's logged, be able to be referenced in your guys' audit trail report? Because we use that one.
Yes, it's actually dropped into, it is dropped into the same log. We would have to adjust the audit trail to show that type of transaction, but if I jump over to audit trail, basically all of those fields are changed on this table, but currently it's filtered just to show stock transactions in terms of, you know, issued, received, moved. So we'd have to change it to, you know, grab this other transaction type of, you know, the ownership change. But that's not a problem.
Perfect.
Okay, so as we will probably try to test some of this next week, can you enable, refresh the database and enable logging of ownership change?
Yes, I'm just writing that down now.
I'm recording this too, Zach.
I'm just making a note so I remember to do it as well. Okay, so we need to enable the logging. We need to change the report slightly.
Sure.
And yeah, that's not too bad. And that would be a much more straightforward process, as we said. We'll clear out the database later this afternoon, and we'll get these changes done. They're pretty quick, so.
Great.
So when you look at inventory in a warehouse location, you want to see who owns what. I mean, you could have, if you had 50 bags or whatever in location 1, 2, 3, you could have 5 different owners or of that coffee. Do you actually like change the label at all, or is there any way of knowing when you look at it?
We presently don't. We just keep it simple. So we'll have just a sticker made up that's got the 7 digits, the CQ and 5 numbers on it. And then within that, we just manage the fact that 2 might be A and 10 might be B and 100 might be C. And if there's a mispick, it's the poor bastard who happens to be there at the end that's going to eat the brunt of it.
Okay. Okay.
Additionally, something that you guys might like in the newer version as well is we do support like expiration dates and things like that. So if you need to, you know, make sure stock is moving, you know, you can try to track that. That way you know if a bag's been here for, I don't know, a year or so. Maybe you need to get that moving along or something.
Pricing categories for the guys who sit here for a while.
Can we have multiple expiration dates?
For a single stock record, no, but you could split it into, you know, different stock records.
Okay, they'll deal with that, but, you know, you have 3 different dates you would want.
The rationale for that question is that based on how long something's been in store, we have a different price for it. So less than 10 weeks is a price, over 10 weeks, and then over 20 weeks. And right now, we just do an inventory report that dumps into Excel and does some logic based on receive date record. And that's all that's kind of driven at.
Is it the receive date, or is it actually like a date the product was produced, or?
The receive date. I may get 2 containers that are sister lots, and one may have been shipped and produced, you know, 3 months before the other one. But coffee is one of those things that doesn't really have an expiration date. It just kind of fades with age. And since we're a third-party facility, frankly, I don't care how old it is. I'm just going to bill them for it. But we want to make sure that we can accurately get an idea how long something's been on site, and I'm sure the receive date record is very easily accessible.
Well, we do have multiple dates, you know, like Lana was saying.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, since we're round and about the parts, we would like to track activities that people on the shop floor do when they pack stuff out or receive stuff from truck, and also bill the customer when we ship stuff out or receive them. So would you suggest that we set up those services as parts, or you have some other way to handle that? Because it will be billed to the customer as shipping and handling altogether, but we may want to track it more granular, every activity that had to occur.
I would put them in as parts in the system. So, you know, service labor charge, or, you know, different things like that. If you'd like to track it very granularly, we do allow for an other charges field, but that's kind of just a, you know, a grouping of all the shipping and handling or other.
Yeah, so that means that we have to add those 30, 40 activities as parts, and maybe.
But right now, we're tracking them as accessorials. So are you recommending we not do that anymore and have them just as an actual part?
Well, to be honest, I'm not familiar with how Inventory Pro for Windows handles some of these things. So.
Oh, got it.
You know, it's one of those things. That's probably the easiest way to track an Inventory Pro online. You know, we can just set it as a non-stock item and handle it that way.
Yeah, but wait, I mean, basically what you're saying is every time you pick up a bag, you're going to charge, do you charge different customers different rates? Do you have different contracts, or do you have a pretty flat fee that you charge every time you move something?
It's flat right now, but as we go down the road here, we want to use the new system to get into multiple price points. Like have a price list that's kind of a rack rate that we can assign to customers, or then have contract pricing specific to one customer, for example.
We do allow for pricing levels in the system, so you could set up different pricing levels and utilize that.
So
those assign each customer to a different price level.
Those services that we will provide and set them up as parts, I assume. Can we somehow separate them from the actual coffee, or is it just a cost center that should be different, or how do you categorize those items?
We have a category field that you could utilize, so you could set up a category for non-stocked items and things of that nature.
Okay. Do we use that field? I can't remember. Yeah, but we use categories for types of coffee or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
We moved to a different,
Yeah,
we had,
line for that. But the category in the center field right now are used for origin and type.
Okay.
There's other drop downs we're going to want to have put in there as well for status, right?
I know it doesn't work, Zach, but the data's here.
Because when
I think you actually told Benson to clear it out a few minutes ago, so. I think it's empty.
Oh, that's okay. We can set them up. And
No,
I
no,
didn't tell him to clear out Dev. I told him to make a new production one that was empty.
I think he initializes the live sites off of Dev, so
Uh,
he cleared this one out and then initialized that.
that's fine. Actually, I prefer to have an empty database and we can redump stuff.
yeah, I was just going to use it to see if you were using the category field because we had the data all populated. But that's okay.
Mhm. I think we have a table called categories, but I haven't seen it used anywhere. So it doesn't matter really. At this moment, we can use this field. It looks good. And center code would be origin. Or,
Yeah, we're not beholden to it. That's just how iPro is set up. So one was going to be the type of stuff it is: the screen, decaf, equipment,
yeah,
zoomables, or then center code.
okay,
We should be able to have the ability to add more bundles.
yes. And each grouping type should be a different field because it's hard to produce proper reports if you keep everything in one.
Right?
Each grouping, like one is, we would like to have a report by origin or a report by, I don't know. Well, it used to be 3PL and wastewater. Now we don't have that categorization, but we might have some extra
I'm
categories.
sure that we can pull a report based on stuff.
Yes, that's why I'm saying
Yeah, I
we
mean,
should have.
we can right now, so there's no reason we can't.
Yeah, yeah.
Zach,
Okay.
Zach, do you remember how we do it for global concentrate? I would think that they're doing. Aren't they,
For what specifically?
well, for all of their like moves, you know, aren't we generating reports for them for their products?
I have no idea. It's
Okay.
been so long since we set that up.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so are we waiting for something or we are moving to another question?
I think move to another question.
Okay, so let's see, would you like work order or multi-order shipment or what?
Is it the logging of the weights?
Yeah,
Tracking the weights?
weights on per receipt.
That's a good question.
So right now, I guess there's a custom field as a second step during receiving where we're able to put in some weighing details and some simple math is done that spits out onto a report. That's a critical part of what we do, what we report on. Is there a spot during the receipt process where we're able to put that in, or even into the item master or whatnot after the fact is fine too?
On the item master, you can specify default weights for products. So net weight, gross weight, you know, per each unit. So if you're tracking, you know, 1 pound equals, you know, 1 here, and things like that. Additionally, when you receive the product in, there is a screen view that has a net weight and gross weight. So if you need to specify that here, you can get that in the system for tracking.
Right, so what we have currently is you put in like a total gross weight, the palletized weight, and a tear weight for the empty bags, and then from there the system will just generate us the gross and nets from that. Is that still a possibility, or just we have to do a bit of math here?
To be honest, I don't have a lot of clients that use gross weight and net weight currently, so I don't know if it still does the calculations. If it doesn't, we would need to customize it and add that in.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see why we can't. I don't think anybody's using it, right, Zach?
No, I don't have any clients that use net weights and gross weights currently.
Yeah,
Most of them just set up the automatic kind of calculation from the item master list. They don't track it individually per pallet as it comes in.
So but do you want us to add another column that's like tear weight?
if you're able to do one for board and one for tear, yeah, then those 4 columns together should be able to spit out all the information we need.
Maybe we're better off adding a couple fields, Zach.
Well,
that-
you'll have to talk to Benson about that. I don't deal with this this particular screen very much. I don't know if we have the space for that on the server.
So
we'll have to see what we can shuffle around.
board weight and tear weight.
Yeah.
So if we have board weight and tear weight, net weight and gross weight, how does your formula work?
I guess total would be the other one, but we can just repurpose gross because we don't use that one as an output. So we take our total weight, which is the pallets the coffee's on, coffee itself, and the bags that they're in. Then the board weight is removed from that to get to our gross. The tear weight is multiplied by the number of pieces in the lot, and then that is removed from the gross to get us to our net. So total minus boards is gross, minus tear equals net.
Okay.
5 lines.
Total minus board.
Equals gross, minus tear equals net.
Okay. So you put in total, board, and tear, and we calculate gross and net.
That's right.
All right. Got it. All right, I made the notes on that one, Zach.
Gotcha.
Okay, what's next? What do you want to see next?
Show us how to ship something, especially how to ship more than one order on one shipment.
Can we have multiple orders but create one shipment for that?
How do you do that today?
Sorry?
We can do it now.
Do you do that in Inventory Pro for Windows today?
No, we don't.
Okay. Okay.
We're just wondering if that's something that's in the newer version at all. People have they build a truck per se with 3, 5, 10 orders, and the whole thing will roll up in some way, shape, or form.
So you'll actually build a truck.
So we'll have a customer that'll have 3 different orders going to 3 different places, and we're currently just entering them all separately, and then generating 3 sets of documents that all go out separately. But there's been a question as to whether or not the ability to assign them all to like one physical shipment that can create an overall manifest or a product list or a piece count or a total weight, if that exists at all. Yeah, creation of a single shipment, whether or not they can do that. Okay.
It could be done, but it's not currently a feature.
Okay. I don't think it's something that we're heard before.
Or is there a way to attach multiple orders to another order so that you can use like a license plate type thing, which is pretty common?
What would be the rationale for it?
Well, then, if you could consolidate under a new number, the new number would represent the shipment.
So it's like a master order with sub-orders?
Yeah. I mean, that'd be a way to do it. I don't know whether you do or you don't, but that's, you know, a lot of warehouses, they call it a license plate, and you can have many smaller consolidated orders from a different. So if you've got a large distribution center, something might have come out of a pig tower, something might have come out of bulk, and they all pick it in pieces. They bring it to the dock, they shrink wrap it all together, it gets a new number, and they just call that new number a license plate. So if there was a way to do something like that, that might get around it. I just put that out there and as a potential solution. All right, it's definitely something to look at anyway. We should do quite a bit of that.
Yeah, during look about one big small guy. Or one big, one small.
But would you maybe do those as work orders? No?
Well, it depends if these guys consider work orders. So we've been doing that question.
Okay.
We don't currently use the work order function.
Well, I mean, there's another work order number ABC -1-2-3. You got the same number, but then you can see there's parts. So it's kind of, a lot of these things I use the term kidology. You're trying to leverage the computer, but trick it into doing something that it thinks it's doing something else, but you know it's really something. You know it's really.
Yeah, but when you click ship button, then what do you want it to do?
Correct.
To ship each 3 orders, or to ship the top order, or
You really want
complete
it to
work
ship
orders,
all
or,
of them.
yeah. As long as you don't have.
It's like any other workaround. It comes with its own complexity. But if that was something that could be created, then come back to us and let us know.
Yeah, as long as we don't use different pricing and everything. I mean, maybe even with that. Okay, so are we? How do we know on which screen we are? I'm confused.
Print and shipping.
It's these 6 tabs, 7 tabs.
Okay, so the first tab.
I think we're on inventory. Which one are we on?
The title in the top left is what we're currently on. So shipping orders is the current page we're on, and whatever is in the top left is always the current page.
Okay. All right. What else should we look at?
Okay, so shipping orders, you're saying we cannot ship these 2 together?
Currently, no. We'd have to create some sort of module to link them together. So that would be something, again, that would need to be customized, and we need to figure something out to associate the 2 together, and then also allow you to, do the different reports or do the different, invoices or packing lists, as a single unit.
We do have bills of lading.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I don't know if does that cover that?
Well, right now it's only per order. So one bill is a
Yeah, we might be able
a truck
to
would be multiple bills.
We could add an extra field on the order header just to associate to it like a master order,
Or
and
truck number.
yeah, or something like that, and then just
Number.
print out all those orders on a single list there.
We don't know that until we're out on site, because we got to stuff together.
Okay.
They got to have some instruction to put those 2 smaller orders together.
Yeah.
And to pick them together, pretty much. You don't want to leave one, end of the day, one at the start. So there's got to be something to tie them together.
Yeah, so we'd have to add another field in order to kind of link that stuff back together, and we'd have to change the different slips to print out, both documents at once instead of just a document for an individual order.
All right, well, this is a need, so, rather than take the whole meeting on this one, but we'll come back to that one. I think we've got to do some work offline on that one.
Okay, can you show us work orders from A to Z, whatever you can come up with, because we don't use them now.
Sure. So work orders, they can be used to either, in like a service industry to track consumption of different stock and inventory. Additionally, I believe that, you can use them as assemblies as well. So if you have a list of products that get assembled into a single product, you can use it to, walk through that stage. So here in the test system, we have a lot of assemblies, so that's what we'll go with for now. And I'll just change this order type to open. So this is just the generic order header record. Shows you what type of work order it is, which warehouse it's being processed from, basic information like that. You can also do some scheduling here as well, and some different requirements fields. It works very similarly to the other screens in the system. So you have a list of different parts, and this can be populated from an assembly. So if I change the assembly to something else, I'll choose the other color one. That way it looks a little different. And then we press top components. It'll refresh it with the different components here. You can see it's changed to use the white faceplate and the white casing for the different type of iPod in our test system here. So essentially, you can load it from a pre-made assembly, and from here I can either specify a number of units to assemble if I'd like to, or if this was a service order, I could just issue the stock out of the system directly from here. So if the work order's been completed, if the stock's been consumed, we can track the consumption, or we can come through here and produce new products. So we'll just use the load all utility. And it's showing me that I don't have enough stock to actually complete this order at this time. So we can do a partial consumption here, and later on we can come back and complete that assembly. So now if we go back to the order record, you can see that we've consumed part of what we need, but we still need to consume a little bit more of the stock here. So as these parts become available, this could be finished out, and once the order is completely finished out, it will receive the assembled stock and inventory here. Alternatively, if you're just using it to remove stock from your inventory, there won't be an assembly process. It'll just send it out of the system as being issued on whatever the specific work order number is. In addition, you can track equipment costs, and so if you have different equipment entered into the system as an asset or things like that, you can track time on the machine, different cost values for that. And there is a labor system as well.
So there's two things we do right now. We don't use work orders. I wish we would. One of them is for our manufacturing group. So they take what we call a raw good. They add labor to it. They add some equipment to it. They add some consumables to it. Run it through a dryer, and then 3 different components that started as raw goods may pop up into a finished good.
Okay.
This seems kind of the kind of place to do that.
Yes, that's pretty much the same process as right here in terms of the assemblies. Just swap out, assembly for finished goods. So you can take the three different raw material parts if you'd like, and add in a labor charge, and output it as a given assembly.
Okay. And on the flip side, there's a process we do. It's a quality control process. So we'll have product that comes in, like, say, water damage, and we actually receive them in with the S letter on the back of the SKU, marking that it's stained and damaged. They'll go through, they'll hand sort it. It's the same idea. There's some machine time, there's some labor, but what'll come out at the end is there's going to come out as reclaimed, made sound product. There's also going to be damaged and product be marked for destruction. Would this be the same thing, having one go in and then to have 2 come out while tracking equipment and labor?
Currently, we don't allow for multiple outputs, but we could customize it to do that. Alternatively, you could just use 2 different assemblies and just process 2 different transactions there.
Yeah, it's typical. Almost every system does the same thing. Multiple out, one in, one out.
Sure.
Okay, cool. We can revisit
We'll
that.
revisit what the customization takes. Well, yes, I agree with you to a degree, but there's always byproducts.
Yes.
Swarf on a mill, that kind of stuff. So that's really what we're talking about tracking.
Generally, when there's byproducts, most of our clients don't track that. They'll just track overages. So maybe it takes 2,000 pounds of something to output 1,000 pounds. We do allow for conversion rates like that and such, but generally the byproducts aren't tracked as inventory items. So if there's any loss or if there's any just random slag or other material coming out of the process, that's just discarded. Most of the time it's not tracked as having a value or coming back into the inventory.
Okay, well we can
revisit that, but that's of interest to us. That's of interest.
We can move the inventory to one value warehouse and
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
What else
Good.
would you want to ask?
Also wondering, as a third use, could we use this to tie into our decaffeination? Like, for instance, we receive the green beans.
Yeah.
We'll have to ship it out to be decaffeinated.
Yeah.
And then we receive it back as decaffeinated, as a...
Right. Yep.
Right.
It could be a similar process, a work order transaction to take in, caffeinated beans and then produce, a finished good of, decaf.
But can you say that again? Did you say you actually send it out?
Yeah, so we're the DC for a decaffeinator. We'll send out 3 truckloads of various items on a day to be blended and then sent back as a finished good down the road.
Almost like a
Yeah,
repair.
it actually goes off-site to a separate building where the manufacturing process is. So it moves about a mile down the road to the production line, and then when they've decaffeinated it, it comes back. So we have raw beans in, storage, ship out to manufacturing, they process, they ship it back to the warehouse as decaffeinated, and then we store until sold.
We do have a repair order process. That might be something we could use for that, but the problem is it's coming back in as a different item number. So it might be easier just to use just to create a different work order reason code and just process it as a work order. So for example, we could create a work order type of reprocessing or something like that and allow you to run it through as that.
So what would the rationale for your repair work order be? What's the...
Generally, it's similar to
RMA?
just marking stock as a hold status or something, so it can't be used. So essentially, a repair order will send essentially just mark the stock as not able to be used. It'll mark it as being shipped out, back to the vendor or whomever for repair normally. And once it's been completed through that process, you'll just receive it back into the system, possibly with some loss, maybe not 100% came back, but that's the normal rationale for that type of transaction.
Yeah. Okay.
But there's no transmuting from one item number to another, and that's kind of the issue here is the fact that it would change.
Yeah, exactly.
Product type.
Okay.
Everything that's on a work order would have to be set up as a part, because the drop-down allows you only to use parts, which means labor as well.
Right. Yeah, we can zero that. Yeah, well, I want to start tracking material across the board. Like, I want to know what our consumable consumption is by order, so we can start tracking that. And the labor is a non-stock item there as well. What else do you guys list?
I don't have anything receiving and moving.
I'd be interested to know what the order document, the pick list, if you will, that we'd give to the guy on the floor. What does that look like in your new system, please?
Nope. Let me find an order that has transactions.
Now, one of the things, too, that came up with us early on, kind of is one of the things haunting us to this day, is with the order status, so we get the order, then we would pack it once the idea is that it's off the floor in a box, and then from there it'd be shipped out and actually leaves the building. Is the same order process step what you guys use online, or is it simply in the building and then shipped and removed from inventory altogether, or?
We support both. So we have a packed process where you can do similar to as you're doing currently, mark it as being packed, and then finally ship it out once it's left on the shipment. However, we also support our standard process, which is once it's marked as shipped, it's left the facility. So you can do it, either way. There's a configuration option that toggles between the two.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
I think we'd lean towards going with the packed process, and we'll just actually execute probably this time, making sure it happens.
What does that mean? Spell that out for me. Because I think it's back to this issue of we need to close every day, right?
Well, there's 2 parts to it. I mean, when the guys go and get an order done, they pull it out of location, and they got it sit in a staging area.
Yeah.
What the packed status does, it removes it from available inventory and marks it as packed.
Okay.
And then once it physically leaves, you hit ship. We don't hit the ship button right now because we didn't realize that was a step until 8 months in, and it totally blew our reporting up.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, we're changing that.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, you pick it and you confirm the pick. You stage and do QC, so you confirm that, and then it's gone out the door because we've either shipped it or the vendors or the customers picked it up.
Yeah.
So there's 3 touch points, if you
Right. So at which point that with the pack status, that makes sure that process is supported.
Awesome.
Otherwise, it's the ship status and it just sits.
Yeah, it could be in the building and we think it's shipped.
Exactly. Well, not that we think it's shipped. It's just it's not going to be on location. We pulled 100 of 300. it's not going to say that it's sitting up front now. We just know it's allocated to order, but it's in the mix.
We need quantity at every step of the process.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for calling that up. So, what would that look like if we've gone mobile, and the guy's on the fork truck, and is this what he sees on the screen, the picker? Let's say we're doing a full pallet pick, and the driver, is this what he's going to see and what he's going to fill in or touch when he's finished each piece?
Let me jump over to the mobile application, and I can show you. So one caveat here is the mobile application doesn't currently support the packing process. So that would be something we'd have to look at and figure out how difficult that would be to integrate. But essentially, once you log into the mobile application, depending on your permissions, this is an administrator account, so I can see all the options and features. But you can lock this down based on permissions to different users, so they can only ship orders or they can only move stock or something like that. So if I jump in here, we can select an order here. So you can either scan in an order number and search, or you can just select it from the list. And once you've selected an order number, this is what you'll be presented with. So what the item numbers are, how many should be available, and how many the order is requesting. And from here, you can mark these items on the right side to mark them as being shipped. The change we'd have to make is instead of marking these as shipped right away, we'd have to drop it into the pack status.
Is this enough for picking, or you wanted them to be able to do something else?
We need a couple more details in there.
Yeah. It's like what we're just talking. Instead of one column at the end, it'll be, if you like, 3.
Well, not even that. Like, we need more details beyond just items. Like, we need to have the marks and location and stuff like that as well.
Okay.
And I personally wanted that logistics is the only one that can ship anything. The guys in the floor would find a way to figure that out, frankly. They can put it in pack status. We know it's been removed from slot staging, but it should be Albert, Sue's, Deb, or Lorena that says, yes, I've got confirmation this is gone.
You mean gone out the building?
Yeah, that would be the
yes. But all the tasks before that, it is the guys on the floor.
Right, and the only one that you have access to be doing is marking it as pack status.
Okay.
Okay, so you'd want to know the location you're supposed to pick from and a few other columns like that.
I see you've got a column to display customizer there, so.
Yeah, again, that's back to the mission. So you guys, see the lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll get a busy screen, but at least then you've got everything to that one order.
Yeah.
And every day at the end or beginning of every morning, you look at what's there, and if they're not finished, you know that you've still got carryover, or somebody screwed it up.
What do you guys find is the most common set of devices for mobile? We're leaning towards going with just Wi-Fi, like iPad Airs, because they're reasonably priced and accessories are easy to come by.
That's an option. We have a few clients that use iPads and different devices. The only caveat with the iPads is Apple and their updates, they do tend to break some things, which can be somewhat frustrating. So you have to be very cautious when updating them, and make sure you contact us before you run any software updates on them. Because
how often do you find that? Living in a browser, presumably you end up using Chrome. There shouldn't be that
Well,
much.
that's the problem. Chrome, when installed on iOS, it actually runs through Safari, and it's just the Chrome user interface with the Safari code behind it. So the problem is Safari on iOS is a little funny when they do major updates, and occasionally they'll break old features or they'll add new features that add some unexpected capability in. I've never really had that problem with Chrome and the system. It just seems that, Apple is a little bit more, weird with that type of thing. They're more willing to break things, essentially.
Fair enough.
So let's turn that around then. What's your recommended hardware?
Usually we'll recommend Android devices. It depends on the particular client what we'll recommend, but pretty much any Android device, made in the last 3 or 4 years, can run the system. So we do occasionally have clients go for the full industrial scanners for the warehouse floors. Occasionally, we'll have clients go towards tablet devices or even Chromebooks and some larger devices like that. So it does vary, and it really comes down to cost and price range in terms of what we'll recommend.
Okay. Thank you.
Chromebooks are pretty cheap.
Yeah.
And it also allows you with the full keyboard in case you need that.
Well, for your supers, that might be, right? They just pick it up and walk, and they come back to presumably a docking station of some sort if they've got more serious work to do.
Yeah.
Well, here, really, at the end of the day, they're just going to be on Wi-Fi anyway. So we've got a full keyboard and stuff. It's already.
Well, keep in mind too that your smartphones will work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any smartphone pretty much.
Looking at throwing a regular sized tablet, like a 9 to 10 inch tablet, onto each forklift.
Yeah,
So
that'd be fun. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Locations, update locations in real time. View pics, and then as they go, they'll just go to the side there where it's just check and say, yeah, this is now packed, and then dump it in staging, then move on to the next.
The iPads will work. You might be just better off with a Samsung Galaxy kind of tablet.
Yeah, we can definitely look into that.
What about order prioritization? How do you show that? There's 20 orders in the hopper, and we want numbers 1, 3, and 9 done before the rest.
That's something we do that on a client-by-client basis. I have done that before, where we have different statuses, on top of our standard statuses here, in order to indicate something that's, emergency or immediate processing. But that's something we turn on a per-client basis. So, whatever, it'll depend what your rules are for that. And how you want to track that.
Well, the priority is that the warehouse serves the parent company and multiple third parties. So needless to say, the parent is the big dog because we've got to keep the production line going. And we wouldn't want one of their orders to get lost or buried under...
Okay, so essentially... We would mark their customer record as being a priority customer or something like that. That way, any order created for them will automatically get priority.
Okay, very interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
That's easy enough to do. All we do then is generally we'll just add a sort by to the transaction. So on the server here, I'll just change this to sort by that customer. So for example, this is Acme Constructors. I'll change it to sort, to prioritize whichever particular customer records we need to.
And if all orders are equal, what's the logic behind how they display? Is it first in, first out?
Usually it's by time entered normally. So.
That's logical too.
Now you'll notice on our test site the numbers are a little out of order because we have different numbering systems as well. So if everything's in the same numbering system, it will show up as the newest record first.
Right, sequential numbers.
Newest record first or newest record last?
Excuse me, newest record last. I got that reversed.
All right, mate. I do it myself all the time. All right, what else were we in here for? How's your agenda?
Yeah, we've covered everything I had. Maybe Todd has that.
So things that we're receiving?
Yeah. The other one I'm interested in is what does statistics and reporting look like now under the new system?
It's much more advanced than in Inventory Pro for Windows. So let me jump back over to the other application here. Too many windows open. So I believe in the base system we have somewhere north of 200 reports. Not all of them are always turned on. It varies client by client. But we have a lot of different capabilities. So we have the full audit trail, probably a little bit more information than your current one in Inventory Pro for Windows. We have different inventory valuation reports, inventory count reports, and oops. Oh, we have a filter set on that one. I'll just change to something else. What is going on with that? Yeah, I'll have to check that out later. Let me jump back over to just the item master list to show this example, because I know we were having some problems on this site earlier. So here, this is the item master list, and you'll notice that this is actually just a standard report in the system. Even with these icons and different controls, it's just run through our general reporting engine. On any report in the system, you can go to the filters page and add multiple different types of filters and toggle them on and off. So let's say I only want an item ID that contains a, let's say a W. I can save that filter, and if I jump back over to the other screen, you'll notice it's been filtered down, and you can see at the bottom of the screen we have the different filters listed. Additionally, we can toggle that filter on and off. So if you have something you're using on a regular basis, you don't have to recreate that filter every time. You can just check it on and off as you need to. Additionally, you can change the default sorting for all users, or if you just need to sort a given report differently, you can click on any of the columns on the screen to change that sorting. So the first click is ascending, the second click is descending, and you can do this on multiple fields at once. And you'll notice that sorting changed a little bit there for those 25. So you can build up different sorting and calculation methods there in order to look at the data in different ways. I'll just toggle those off. Additionally, you can print this straight from the application, and you can print this straight to a PDF or straight to a printer. And you can also export any of these reports to a CSV file as well.
Is there any option to also email them on a schedule, like a monthly schedule?
Normally, automatic emails like that, we have to configure them again on a per client basis. We have some clients that we send out daily restocking reports, you know, so they might need to purchase more stock or things like that. But if you can tell us the report you need to be sent out, we can configure that and have it sent out nightly.
Okay.
Are there any ability to set up triggers or those alerts within the system, or it's always just custom configuration?
It's always it's currently always a custom you know, thing in order to go in and add the different triggers. We do have a few standard notifications and things that can be turned on and off, but they're not very comprehensive at this point. So. Okay.
So would I be able, if I'm a system administrator, to configure those alerts?
Not really. It's primarily something we need to do.
You can show her the definitions, though, is that?
They're all in the code right now, Ben. They have there's a couple flags to turn them on and off.
No. I'm just saying the report definitions, so you can like copy the new and make a new report.
Oh yeah, reports. You can alter reports. So this is just a standard SQL query on the database. Database has changed a bit from the older Inventory Pro for Windows systems, but you can still alter these reports if you need to, and you should be able to use some of the existing knowledge on how it works in order to customize reports. Essentially, you just change the database view here, and you know, click Save, and you can alter the report. The columns that are shown are just determined by these values down here. We have a section in our manual that covers exactly, you know, what the values mean and how to customize this. But any report you do customize, you do just need to mark that little flag there to make sure it's not overwritten by any automatic updates.
Okay.
But yes, you can copy this to new. You can create new ones.
We probably will. Okay, so regarding training, are there any online resources, or is there a PDF, or how can we learn? What's the best way?
We have a copy of our you know, manual that does cover some of that information, so we can get you a copy of that. And if you do need to do a training session with us on how the reports work, we can do that as well.
Yes, and not only reports, but all the other functions, so we don't call you every day.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it is covered in the manual on a lot of the standard functions.
But what we'll do, Lana, with train the trainer kind of stuff is we'll record all of these meetings that we do. So you'll end up with a little library of YouTube videos.
Okay. Very cool.
In terms of reporting, have you gone as far as dashboards yet? You know, percentage of plan percentage of orders shipped yesterday, that kind of thing?
We haven't done that. I mean, we could.
No,
Yeah, that's a simple enough report to create.
Yeah. No, we actually have a tool that we do that kind of thing. So I just wondered how much of it was already in place in here.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've not gone there yet.
Generally, the way I would do that is I would create a report that just shows, based on the day, it would calculate the number of orders shipped. But again, I mean, it's one of those things, we don't have every report we've ever written in the system here, and, in our default system at least, so.
Fair enough.
Actually, Ben has helped me to connect Click to your test database, and that worked. So that's our plan.
That's where we
Then
go.
you should be able to continue using that then.
Okay.
iPro for Windows, you guys have got a small module part for warehouse appointments. Is that still a thing in iPol?
You said warehouse linkage?
Appointments. Like
appointments. Gotcha. Yes, we do have the appointment system as well.
Okay.
It works very similarly to the purchase orders as far as just, receiving stock directly in without necessarily, the invoicing and things like that. So, yeah, it pretty much works exactly the same. You just create an appointment similar to a purchase order, and you can select supplier, or you don't have to. Select the warehouse and all the usual things. What was that?
Is this basically like a direct receipt then? It's not a
yes,
function.
it's a direct receipt, but it has a different reference. So if you need to track additional, receiving details or additional values along with it, it allows you to do that.
Okay, gotcha.
Crazy question. Could you set that up instead of by warehouse, but by door?
Nothing to multiple warehouses. So we maintain our ION inventory in 3 separate physical facilities. And right now, we ended up setting it up at Tom's guidance to just kind of make each facility its own like warehouse location, or to have a slightly different numbering schema to filter it out. Within that, one of the challenges we bumped up against is moving inventory between them. So we have to generate paperwork, like a pick slip or a bill of lading for our friends at DOT. Is there anything like that that you guys have got set up within that now, other than just kind of moving a location?
So as far as transferring stock between warehouses, that's done with our transit utility. So you can generate transit slips, and move stock between warehouses with that.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of warehouse organization, that's something, as far as like the structure and organization, that's something we generally leave up to each client. You can have the top level warehouse, and then underneath that, the different locations. And it really depends on your workflow how that needs to be organized. So.
Okay, could you tell me a little bit more about the transit movement there then? This is the first I've heard of it.
Sure. So let's just let me check and see which warehouses these parts are turned on for.
I'm going to jump in just for a second, Zach. You guys are going to find that the warehousing and the transit slips in this are much, much better than they are in Inventory Pro for Windows.
Outstanding. I'm using an Excel sheet right now that my staff are writing on by hand, and it's a pain in my ass.
Yeah, this is much, much better.
Outstanding.
Okay, so can you also write down to enable that feature in our pilots?
Transits are enabled by default in the system.
It's in all of them.
So what I just did is I just checked to make sure that this part was turned on for all the warehouses, so we can actually use it for a transit transaction here. So essentially, if we pop over to this screen, let me just find that part number again. Okay, so we have 2 different lots here, and from here I can mark the units and put them in a transit to, let's say we'll put them in the Acme retail location. And essentially all you do is select, mark the lines, and then at the top select which warehouse. And you can also select a transit slip, so if you'd like to append it to an existing transit slip, maybe it hasn't shipped yet or anything like that, you can do so.
Okay.
So from here, I just click Ship Units, and that generates a transit slip number automatically if you don't select an existing one. And then if we go to the target warehouse, once they've received the stock over at Acme Retail, they can come to this list here, and from here, you can click the transit slip document. This will give you a transit slip generally with what was on the transit slip, you know, the item numbers, different information. I don't know why that's such a small.
But it's generating those documents that for the DoD.
And if you need any additional formatting or different, you know, text at the bottom in terms of legalities and things, we can append those on.
Fabulous.
But this is great as a control mechanism.
Well, we have nothing right now.
And while the stock is in transit, it is marked as a hold, so it cannot be consumed by any other transactions. And once it's received at the target location, you can just select at the target warehouse, excuse me, you can select the location to receive the stock into and mark it as received. So that finishes the transaction and closes the transit slip.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And within each warehouse, we can set up separate bin locations?
Yep.
Exactly.
It's much better than with the way it worked at Inventory Pro for Windows.
So here I'll go to the locations list. And you can set up multiple different locations in each warehouse, and warehouses can actually have different warehouses can have locations named the same way as well. So if you have a generic dock at each warehouse, you can set that up in here.
Awesome.
Anything else you guys want to go over?
You're good in terms of privileges and access and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, everybody's admin.
Well, they are on this one, but
Yes,
they won't be going forward.
We'll probably have to work on that separately.
Yeah, I mean, there'll only be 2 or 3 that have that rights, and everybody else will be.
Yeah, maybe you can show us where we can set up groups.
Yes. So the default system has 4 or 5 different groups in it. So with each different group, there are different levels of permission. So, for example, if I go to the customer group, if you decide to add any customer users and grant them access to see process of orders or things like that, you'll notice the customer group can pretty much do nothing in the system except look at their orders, and that's about it. So you do have fine-grained control over which group can perform which activities. And similar for reporting, there is a reports permission system as well. So you can lock down which groups have access to which reports.
Perfect.
Good.
There is actually a quick order screen too, which is intended for customers to be able to put in their own orders.
Oh, really? Tell us more.
So essentially the way this screen works is you'd create a customer user on the system, and then you can set them up and assign them to their customer record and assign them to a specific warehouse they're allowed to order from, or even allow them to order from any warehouse. And essentially, when they come to this screen, they're automatically locked into their particular values, and they can specify the number of units they'd like to order by either stock they've ordered previously, or there's a few different views here in terms of, they can look at all available. Or you can add new lines to the bottom of these lists as well, and just select new line items from the list. So it works in a few different ways depending on what your configuration options are in your system. But from here, essentially, this just creates a new order once they've completed this process, and drops it into the system for either a fulfillment, or with some clients we drop these in as quotes until they've been reviewed by other users. So it really depends on your particular use case how we configure this module.
So think of it as an e-commerce screen without the commerce.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you can see here we have the shipping order record here that was just generated. So yeah, essentially it just drops a fresh order into the system, and you can either mark that as a quote by default or mark it by drop shipment or just a regular order.
So the reason I showed interest in that is that we have this sub-process called sampling, where, before they actually put the beams through the production line, they send a small sample off to the lab to do a whole bunch of testing. So we have this activity called sampling. And the Today it's all done by email or telephone to get it started. And if there was a way for the production plant to enter their sample requests direct into our system, that would standardize and simplify, and it would then also put all the work into the hopper, if you will, with all the other tasks that have got to be done in a day. So the ability.
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect use case for the quick order system.
Yeah.
They could log in, request 1 bag or 5 bags or whatever the number is.
Yeah. Okay, I think we need to follow up on that one and think how it would work, but it sounds an interesting possibility. All right, good. There was an earlier one that you started talking about, we cut off and went to the report. Yeah. You remember? Okay.
Waste, some custom generated reports on orders process, bill lading, packing stuff come up, good. Order lists is there and looks still a lot tighter than it is now. I don't think we'll be using, we'll look at the appointment screen. Direct receipt, we just want to actually track appointments as they come and go.
Yeah.
Paperwork, inter-branch, which is a thing of beauty. Inventory reporting, Lan and I have got to work on consolidation.
Yeah.
We got a lead on equipment now, so we can look into that.
There was a bit about manufacturing as well, so that's an
Yeah,
opportunity.
exactly, and the requisition process is going to get a complete reroute anyways, so there's that.
Right. What happens if something goes wrong? Where do errors go to so that not completed work, bad data, transaction didn't go through for some reason? How does the system tell us there are problem items to be addressed?
So it depends on the screen. A lot of our screens do have different error correction built in. So for example, here on the shipping order, if I had manual shipping order number entry enabled, where you just type in the shipping order, whatever number you're using, we do have systems that pop notifications up at the top of the screen saying, that number is already in use or things like that. And let me see if I can demonstrate that. So I'll just re-enter in an item ID that already exists.
Yeah, I suppose, like conditional formatting for ID numbers, 1 digit too many or 1 digit short.
So you'll see this is like one of the standard errors in the system. So we do catch a lot of errors. If there is a complete system error, you'll notice it will drop an error down here as well. So this is that same message, critical error, so, we can't continue. And all errors like this are logged to the database. So, if you guys ever have a problem and we need to help you work through it, we can just log in and see what was going on recently. As far as formatting, we do some automatic correction. So, for example, if you try to put in, illegal characters that can mess up different parts of the system, I think an ampersand is one of them, it'll automatically filter those out, I believe.
This isn't up.
So you'll see, again, it processed it back down to LCD 50, and it noticed that number's already used. So I'm going to put a 34 at the end there. And again, you'll notice it just filters out that bad data automatically in terms of, whatever might cause a problem or might cause issues. Additionally, throughout the system in other areas, if a transaction fails to post, generally you'll get a similar error message at the top of the screen. So, for example, if you're receiving stock or trying to issue stock and maybe you didn't give a valid location, or maybe if you're issuing stock, there's no stock available in that location, it will bark up a similar error, asking you to resolve or select another location. And yeah, generally you'll just see those error messages right here at the top center of the screen.
Well, that looks good.
Is there an error log there, Seth?
Yes, there is an error log in the system as well. So if we jump over to the reports, not all errors are logged. There are some like the receiving and issuing stock ones. Those are not logged just because they're fairly low-level errors that occur all the time when people forget to select locations and things. So we do log. Let me change the sorting here. And let me set that by record descending so we can actually see the ones we just did. So you can see here, this is the two different save transactions we tried to process, and they're logged in the error log here. And pretty much any error in the system that occurs that's critical enough will get put into this error log here. So you can see we have a few other transactions on a bad report a few months ago.
Okay, that's
Different
cool.
things.
All right, so what do you recommend for us, knowing what you know about our business and where we're coming from on the existing Windows? Is there anything we need to be thinking of in terms of time and learning curve? You know, to catch up with this, are we going to be putting one of our super users into a room for a day, a week, a month, or what? I mean,
Take away his phone.
I appreciate that might be a difficult question, but it would, any guidance at all would help us in terms of planning our transition.
Generally, in terms of training, you know, if we do need to do it, we'll do it in short sessions, 1 or 2 hours at most. Now, you guys are talking about using most of the features in the system, so that does complicate it in terms of, you know, you'll need training on each specific area. Not all clients use every single feature, you know, in the ways that you guys are, you know, communicating. So that might be a little bit more in depth, but generally it's pretty quick to pick up the system, and generally we'll just train one primary user and get them going. Are you going to say something, Ben?
Well, I mean, you do have a head start in that Lana and everybody there already knows Inventory Pro for Windows.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So a lot of the terminology is the same. There is, you know, we've made notes. We need to spend a week or two here getting the system so it's going to work better for your process.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think Lana is going to be able to pick this up pretty quickly. You know.
Yeah, we'll be doing more than one person. We're trying to get away from one person being everything. So we'd have at least 2 people in the room.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
In fact, it's probably the 4 people here, less me, which means these.
yes. Okay.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, we're not exactly at the bottom of the learning curve, but there's new functions here, and we're going to use it in a different way. So in a way, we've got to unlearn a few bad habits too.
Mm-hmm.
Are you using barcoding at all? The one thing we haven't talked about, Zach, if you click on the label, you know,
where did we go with that?
We print.
And part of the rationale was the conversation about how we're going to have each lot separate. Right now, an entire lot has the same number on it because it's the same core lot. If we're going to barcode it, means every specific pallet is going to be different.
Yes.
So if we're going to end up selling a whole container to someone, every barcode is now incorrect because the details are going to say the vendor and the lot number as part of that data set versus just the number as it is now.
Unless we can think to use one of these new pieces of functionality in a different way. Okay, we have ambition. I suppose to answer your question, we have ambitions about barcoding. We just don't know how to do it with some of our business practices.
Okay.
And we will need
Well, I mean, you can use barcoding for some practices and not for others, for that matter. I mean, you could phase it in. You know, it's not like you have to. Once you turn it on, doesn't need to be ubiquitous. It can be just in certain spots.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So in that regard, then we're interested in it sooner rather than later.
So, I mean, what Zach just clicked on is a item ID label. We tend to customize these. You know, if you wanted a lot number on that, or a date, or a different size, you know, we'll customize the labels.
There's a label we've got from another customer of ours. I wouldn't mind firing your guys' way. It's pretty in depth to the content of it. It's a larger style one, but that would be fantastic.
Zach, why don't you show them the receiving label real quick?
Sure.
We didn't put the guns in the budget, though, did we?
Cameras on the.
So we didn't just use the.
So we haven't spent all the budget though.
Oh, no.
So this label has more gunk on it.
And again, if
Okay.
you have a specific format, we can, set it up with the different attributes as well.
This is like 3 by 4 or something. 3 inches
Yeah.
by 4 inches.
No, it's actually a 4 by 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But again,
Bigger.
we scale these and resize them all the time. So.
So how would you use this? Just stick it on the order, really print it?
All of these, we gotta figure out how we wanna use it internally, but,
It's the internal bit that's the problem. The in and the out is straightforward. It's the inside the four walls.
Yeah. What are we tracking with?
one of the other things too, we also want to do is have a simple label that can go on everything from the get-go, backhauls and stuff, because right now we're using Excel to make 2 by 4 inch Avery labels, and not yet, we want to be able to have a zebra just print out 100.
And for your information, we are implementing MES on the other side. That's my other project. And they are going to use labels, or at least they hope. So some of the stuff will come labeled and barcoded.
And it's got to flow through. We ain't going to relabel it
Yes.
if it's already coming from.
Yeah, so maybe we'll learn something from that side and apply it here. And the printers as well might be part of that project and just.
I think it comes after we get the upgrade to get rid of the other issues first.
Yes, please.
It's prioritization,
Mhm.
right? What do you recommend in terms of hardware for printing labels?
Zebra printers.
Okay,
Or Datamax or Epson. Zebra is like the world standard.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just wondered if you've got something different. No,
As long as it has a Windows driver, we can print to it. So some people will even use like an HP LaserJet. They'll print 8.5 by 11 sheets. Remember you talked about those license plates for your pallets?
Yep.
We have a couple clients that we print those license plates for. So.
Okay. All right, well, no, that helps. Zebra's fine. Thank you. So, yes, we are interested in barcodes. It's just not the first thing we want to do.
Sure.
No problem.
It's here when you want to turn it on.
Okay, cool.
And we do, I don't know if you noticed, but like the pick list and the packing list, the purchase order, the shipping order, they all have barcodes on them.
Yeah, that's right. So you'd want to scan that before you actually tick it off at the end.
Right.
Yep.
And we'll customize those. Like if you want to have barcodes on each line, we can do those too.
I'll send that. Which might work for some of our consolidation orders. That's it. All right, that's good. What else we got?
Nothing. I have just written down 5 things that we would be really appreciate if you can do it by maybe next week or whenever. So we can.
Is this due or come back to you how it's going to cost?
Start with no. Do on our test database, and that is to maybe refresh it or update whatever was causing these errors. Then, if possible, I would empty all data and then re-import new stuff that Tad and I are working on. Would that be possible?
Sure.
Okay.
There's actually, we didn't show you this yet, but there's export utilities, so you can import Excel spreadsheets here.
Very cool. We can try. Okay, but I think we plan to, for now, dump stuff into that Dropbox that you sent me.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay, then I'll actually email you the list. If you can send us or send me IPL manual, and I will spread it around. Turn on logging of ownership change. That's what you may have done now. I don't know. And turn on transit slips for all locations. I don't even know.
That's already done.
That's in the base system.
That's in the base.
And then we'll hopefully start testing next week. We'll actually talk about it just after this meeting.
Cool.
So, are we done?
The other one that I noted a couple more. I mean, we want to look at adding the board weight and the tear weight so that, you know, we can, on the receiving, we can calculate the gross and the net for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
And also we wanted to look at having master orders or truck orders with sub-shipping orders on them. And I would, just one question there, I mean, do you limit your master orders to a certain number of sub-orders, like you can only have 5 stops on a truck, or you can't exceed 44,000 pounds or something like that? You know, do you have some rules? Can't overload trucks or containers or rail cars or...
You can't go above, into the U.S., you can't go north of 44,000. In Canada, you can't go north of 54,000. We don't limit the number of drops, just because they're not really driven by us. We have a couple customers who manage that, and we just sort of, they'll say these 4 orders are going to ship together, and that's kind of how it goes, and the way we manage that is by putting it on the clipboard. But we don't build anything ourselves kind of outside of that. That's beyond the scope of our logistics planning at present.
Okay.
So could you put some limits in there? Sure. Would they be of value? It's hit and miss.
Okay. And the only other thing I noted was having multiple outputs on work orders. Have to look at how doable that is. I don't know, Zach, off the top of your head, if that's...
Again, that's something that's done in the libraries behind the scenes, so we'll have to open that up and see if it's, you know, if it's possible to set that up. Because I think currently it's it's designed to be 1-to-1, or excuse me, like multiple in, single out. I don't know how we'd link, you know, multiple outputs, and that's kind of the issue.
I mean, worst case scenario, if it happens to be that we've got to process 1 out, we have a damaged SKU going in, we have a make sound coming out of it, and we have to just do like a direct receipt of the damaged product and put it in kind of a hold status so we can't accidentally do something. I mean, that creates a fail-safe for us as well, because I get the sense that trying to build multiple outs when the system wasn't designed for that is going to cause a lot more headache than it's worth. And realistically, over the course of the year, we may end up receiving in 10,000 different SKUs. We may only process 150 to 200 damaged. It's a very small number compared to the overall throughput, so I wouldn't put a whole lot of effort into this. It's not something that's really going to rear its head for value, I think, for you guys as well, kind of beyond this.
All right, well, we'll put it at the bottom of the priority list, that's for sure.
Yeah, appreciate it, though.
Sounds good.
Okay, then,
Yeah, I'm
that's
good.
it.
That's great. Good session.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I'll just email you my little list, and hopefully it won't take you too long. And we really appreciate all the help and effort you're putting in us, and we are so slow always.
That's
Yeah.
okay. That's okay.
No, good session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Talk soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.